Good morning. It's fall in Nashville. Weather's beautiful. I know I say that a lot, but gosh, I love it here. Especially this time of the year. It's perfect. If we could have 4 months of this, I'd be so happy. So anyway, what I wanted to talk about today was I did something cool this weekend. As many of you guys know, or maybe don't know, one of the many hats I wear in the music business is I record a ton of live concerts. It's part of what I do. It's my favorite thing of all the hats I wear to do. And so I got a last minute call from a friend asking if I could record John Waite at the Franklin Theater this past Saturday. Franklin Theater is this great little classic movie theater downtown Franklin that's been restored, and I think capacity's like 350 maybe, but it sounds great, it looks great. If you're shooting video in that room, it shoots a lot bigger than it actually is, which is a good thing. So anyway, yeah, of course I jumped at the chance. We had to cut our fall break back a little bit. We were down at our place in Florida, which coincidentally, Styx was having a 3-day music festival in Florida while we were down there. So ahead of recording this show, I got to go out and see them. And the night I went to see them, it was John Waite 38 Special, which, man, as a kid, that was one of my favorite bands. Growing up, I didn't know anything about Lynyrd Skynyrd. I didn't know, early 80s. I didn't know anything that came before it, but I love some 38 Specials, still do. So they're always great. If you've ever seen them live, it was the same thing. They're always great, always all live. And then Styx. Another great surprise was my good friend Eddie Trunk was there hosting. And if you guys, most of my audience will obviously know who Eddie Trunk is. For those of you that don't, Eddie Trunk is kind of like our Howard Stern of rock talk. He's on Sirius XM 2 hours a day, just talking about the music that our generation loves. Like, I can tell you at any given moment what Rat is up to or not up to. That's my I won't say guilty pleasure. That's my passion. I love that. So anyway, Ashley had never met Eddie. I met Eddie, 20 plus years ago. I was producing a show for Judas Priest. They had a classic record called British Steel. British Steel had Breaking the Law, Grinder. It's a classic record. So anyway, British Steel was turning 30 years old, and we did a live concert on them for HDNet. And I got to work with my good partner, Evan Heyman, who we produced a ton of stuff. When I say produced, I did audio. Evan would always oversee video, and it was a great marriage. So why I'm telling that story is that's when I met Eddie Trunk. And Eddie Trunk had a show on VH1 Classic called That Metal Show, and I was a fan of it. I thought it was great. I knew he was a big Priest fan, so I'm backstage at this show in Hollywood, Florida, and I hear management saying, "Oh, Eddie Trunk and his 2 friends are outside. Can someone go meet them and let them in?" And then in that same conversation, I'm talking with the director, and they're like, "We need someone to bring the crowd on and to rev them up." And I'm like, "What? I think Eddie Trunk is here, but we should get him to do that." So we had Eddie go out there, do what he does best. He warmed up the crowd, and I also requested that we get a Judas Priest show. At some point, the crowd will start chanting "Priest, Priest, Priest." So I had Eddie do that for me, which was great because I sent it to him years later. So anyway, I go back with this guy, and he's great. I love him to death. He he brings me so much joy every week, his show with all rock fans. So, but Ashley had never met him. We hung out, I guess the last time we had hung out was last year in Nashville. BMI was honoring Billy Gibbons as like a trailblazer. And Eddie was there. So it was great. He had invited me to sit. He was the MC of the event. He had invited me to sit at his table, but I was there with a buddy of mine. Shout out Rusty Gaston for inviting me. And so anyway, Eddie was asking me, well, first off, I get there and Rick Beato comes up to me and he's like, hey, Rob, good to see you. Eddie Trunk's here. He's looking for you. And so I go find Eddie, and, you know, this is a Nashville crowd. A lot of these people know who Eddie is, but he doesn't know who they are. And he's talking about Keith Urban. And I'd been telling him for some time, you would love Keith Urban. Even though you're an 80s hard rock guy, you love guitar, you will love Keith Urban. And I'm kind of giving him the background of Keith Urban. And so Eddie's the MC, and he was like, hey, if you want to sit at my table, I'm just right down here in the center. And I was like, no, that's okay. I'm my buddy's +1. So I need to sit with him. And we were one table over. So anyway, I leave Eddie's table. I go to our table. Keith Urban pops down next to Eddie, which I was so happy about because I've wanted them to meet one another because they have a lot in common. Keith's a big rocker guy. For you Kiss fans, I think he had a rock band in Australia called Fractured Mirror, which was a Ace Frehley track off his 78 solo record. Anyway, I went down a long rabbit hole there to say I finally got to introduce my wife Ashley to Eddie Trunk, which was great. So we got to catch up, which was great. And, you know, all the geeky, what this band is up to stuff. So Eddie and I are standing there watching John Waite. And the other awesome thing about John Waite is my good buddy Kyle Cook, who Kyle plays guitar in Matchbox 20. And again, I've known Kyle for 22, everything's 20 plus years. I'm just going to roll with it. It's a good thing. It's good to know people a long time, but every time I'm saying 22, 25 years, it just, because I still think I'm 18, but I'm not, I'm 52. So anyway, Kyle's on stage playing guitar with John Waite, and it's just bass, drums, guitar, and John singing. John played guitar on a couple songs. So anyway, and Eddie and I are like, man, this is so great to just hear live music, 100% live. I know I say this a lot, with no tracks, no backing tracks, no computers on stage. And I can say that for Styx, 38 Special, and John Waite. Always great, always live. So anyway, on that night, we just watched John. Him and the band killed it, which made me more excited about this live recording a couple days later. Because you never know when you show up. You don't know if people are in good voice, where they are in their life. You know, they might be killing it. They might be going through a rough patch. The ideal thing is a sold out house, artist in a great voice, mood. That's just always a fun combination. So we leave Florida early. You know, if I didn't get this gig, we would have gone back, and I would have gotten to see Cheap Trick, my all-time favorite American rock and roll band, and Loverboy, which was my first concert. And I've seen both of those acts way too many times than I'd like to admit. But work took us home early, which I'm so fortunate about. So we get back to Nashville, get to the venue on Saturday, I think Saturday, get loaded in, get to see my bro Kyle, which again, you know, sometimes you go years and you don't get to see friends, and you know, we all see each other online, but it's just not the same. Incredible human being. And I finally got to meet his girlfriend. Unbelievable. She's real into flowers. My wife's real into flowers. So it was great. We get through sound check. My long assistant, Matt, got to assist me, which Matt Corum, shout out. Matt has assisted me. We jokingly said it's like 40 or 50 shows Matt assisted me when I won my Grammy with the Fisk Jubilee Singers. So he's been there, and he knows me and all my weird mannerisms. And when I get to do a show with Matt, it's just always so much fun because there's so much unspoken. You just don't have to talk about it. So I'm in my comfort zone, is what I'm saying. And get to catch up with my buddy Kyle. We had a great sound check. Got to meet John. He was great. He was so accommodating to do whatever to make it great. Got to ask him to play Back on My Feet Again, which is one of my favorite. John was in a band before he was a solo artist called The Babies. Interesting enough, Jonathan Cain came into that band. Jonathan Cain of Journey, keyboardist, co-writer of so many of those great Journey songs. So, the Babies were actually opening up for Journey, and that's how John Cain got the opportunity to join Journey, which I guess ultimately broke the Babies up, which then takes John Waite into a solo career. And, John Waite is largely known for his biggest hit is Missing You. He wrote this song called Missing You. Again, my mentor, I'm so thankful for, a guy named David Thoner. I mention him a lot. It's because he made a tremendous difference in my career, and I just so value my friendship with him. Go to allmusic.com and look David Thoner up if you don't know who he is. He's a legend. Was working with John Lennon when he was 19 years old. When he was in his 40s, he finally won a Grammy. Way overdue Grammy. And you know what? On my YouTube channel, I have a 10-part interview I did with Dave Thoner like 20 years ago. I had dark hair. I had longer hair. We were younger and better looking. But I might post a link to that because it's really good. I wanted to do what I'm doing now. I actually started thinking about doing this 20 years ago. I just got busy raising a family and doing all the things I do, trying to be a good husband. So David Thoner, I'll put a link in the notes to that video for those that are interested in him. So the reason I bring Dave Thoner up, he produced the biggest song in John Waite's career, a record called No Breaks. It had a song called Change, and it had the monster hit Missing You, written by Chaz Sanford, John Waite, and forgive me for forgetting the third co-writer. And that song's been such a hit for Tina Turner, for John Waite. Years later, Dave Thoner recorded Missing You for Brooks and Dunn, a record Byron Gallimore was producing on them. And it's funny because David invited me by the studio, and I knew Kix Brooks real well. Kix was instrumental in my career and instrumental in encouraging me to start rock and roll. And actually, I got one of my first album credits was on a Brooks and Dunn record called If You See Her. So, I'm there on that day as Dave's guest. It's always good to see Kix, but I'd never really gotten to know Ronnie Dunn. And so we're talking. We both lived in a small Texas town called Coleman, and they played Missing You for me. And I'm like, this is almost as good as the first time Dave did it with John Waite. And Dave, being as humble as he is, had failed to tell the producer, Byron Gallimore, and Kix and Ronnie that he had actually produced the original Missing You. That's what I love about him. So humble. And you'll find in the music business, some of the most successful people are the most humble and amazing. So, Missing You, monster song. Dave Thoner had recorded and mixed and produced that. And last thing on that, to this day, when that comes on the radio, it's perfect. The mix is perfect. It's flawless. That's one of the best sounding records, I think. It's in my top 10. So, fast forward back to the Franklin Theater. We get through sound check. I get to talk to John, meet John. Lovely, nice guy. Seems to, I think he's like 72. I've never met him before. And so any story I'd heard about before, I could care less, because he was a very kind person, seems to be in a great place in life. I had told the backstory about John Waite, was in the Babies, left the Babies, had this solo career, made this record with Dave Thoner that was massive. And, here we are 40 plus years later, recording songs from that record at the Franklin Theater, which, again, so many connection points. The band played a healthy dose of Baby songs. They played a healthy dose of John Waite's solo. And, after 86, John Waite, the solo artist, joins back up with Jonathan Cain of Journey and Neil Schon, the guitar player of Journey. Those guys were on a hiatus, I think, kind of after their record Raised on Radio. I think they had fired their bass player and their drummer, and Steve Perry went and did Street Talk. That's right. That would have been like 84 though. And then they did Raised on Radio. Timelines get weird. So anyway, Jonathan Cain, John Waite, and Neil Schon started a band called Bad English. Most notably, they recorded a Diane Warren ballad called When I See You Smile. You know that song. Everybody knows that song. It's a massive song. That was kind of the peak of Bad English. They put out 2 records. They were really good. The drummer was Dean Castronovo, who would 20 years later come into the Journey fold and be awesome. So anyway, Bad English does 2 records. Then John Waite picks up his solo career, which he's been doing ever since. Back to Missing You, a couple of years ago, John Waite, who was dating Alison Krauss at the time, did a version of Missing You, who I think was produced by Scott Baggett, who David Kalmusky just introduced me to. And Baggett's the guy that had hired me on Dave Kalmusky, thank you very much, his recommendation to have me record this. See how all this works? Music business, I'm telling you, it's just a big circle. And if you're dumb enough to stay in it your whole life, all these people come back, which is, I love that. It's so cool. So anyway, years later, John re-records Missing You with Allison. Go to the streaming site, check that out. It's unbelievable. I don't know who mixed it, but again, great song. And with Allison on it, it's perfect. I believe Kyle Cook did a record on John, in between Matchbox 20, which, they fire that machine up every 3-4 years. Kyle has a lot of time, and so being a sideman for John Waite is one of the ways he likes to spend his time, which I think is great, because he's a fantastic guitar player. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. I've rambled. The band crushed it. 4-piece band. They ended with Led Zeppelin, Whole Lot of Love, which, man, John Waite just went for it vocally. And at 72, I'm not even going to say he's as good as he's always been. I'm going to say he might be better. And that doesn't even make sense. But when he was doing the scream part, Whole Lot of Love, I don't know how somebody at 72 that probably had a good time most of his career, how they're able to do that. But again, for me, 100% live, no tracks. That's my happy place. Y'all have heard me rant about that. It's just what I love. Real rock and roll should move. It should not. You shouldn't even be playing with a click, honestly. And I know all the reasons why people do that, but personal preference. The band killed it. I was so happy to be there. Franklin Theater staff is incredible. They're great. And I had a good time. So anyway, that's kind of my what Rob's been up to the last week, and John Waite and 80s hard rock, right? All the things I love and am passionate about. And if you listen through this this whole thing, God bless you. I tend to ramble, and I am going to try to get better about making these shorter. But hey, I hope you have a fantastic week. If you listen to this and liked it, please like and subscribe, and we'll keep doing more of these. So anyway, have a great week. Thanks for watching. Bye.